School. So, a little bit different than your normal notes, all right? The slides, all of the titles of each slide are at the top of those little lined areas, all right? So you kind of sort it out that way, organize it a little bit that way, all right? And again, if anything needs clarifying, just let me know. I'm happy to do that for you, okay? So once I get the PowerPoint up,
Can you get started from here, or are you starting from your own?
I think I need you to start from there,
Okay.
if possible. We'll give it just a second. We'll get going.
I hope she did. Did you like my post?
HDMI?
What? I'm missing 3 highlighters.
All right. All right, so today we're learning about the two-party system. It's going to kind of lead us in to the political spectrum. Okay, kind of the very basic setup of political parties in the United States. All right? So, origins. Let me figure out a way to make this a little bigger. There we go. Okay, thank you. So, okay, cool. So, very early in the country's history, so kind of right after the Revolutionary War, politics was a lot smaller. Okay, our country was a lot smaller. We only had 13 states at the time. If you want to move over if you can't see. Okay. Yeah, only 13 states at the time. Still a lot of issues to deal with. Okay, very weak country at that point. A lot of people weren't really on great terms with us. But we still had kind of an organization going on, the Continental Congress. All right? They sent in representatives from all 13 states, and they needed a 9-vote majority out of that 13 to kind of get anything done. All right? So it was kind of a rudimentary system they had from the get-go. All right? They're not really in a great spot to begin with. They got a lot of time to work it out. Okay? For this, just make sure you know that Continental Congress. All right? It's kind of important. That's kind of the initial, the first really existent Congress we had as a newly formed country. Okay? Any questions at all, just as we're getting started? All right. Give it another minute or so, and then we'll keep moving. Here in this picture is kind of what it would look like. All right, you got some folks praying over here. Religion was a big thing back then. Kind of wanted this to be a whole God's country type deal. Then you got a lot of just little debates going on. All right, among the people living in the country at that time, lots of just small little disagreements that made getting things done even harder. All right? So we will move on to the next slide. So, our first president right up there, pretty familiar face, George Washington. He did not like this idea of political parties. All right? Like I said, it's a weak country. They didn't really want anything at all that could even possibly divide us. All right? Nonetheless, about 10 years, less than 10 years later, around when the Constitution was kind of getting a little bit of momentum, political parties started to form. All right, so make sure you understand that George Washington, the country's first president, was not a fan of political parties, did not want it to be a thing in America's lawmaking structures. All right? Give you guys a second. We're doing good so far. You know, it's kind of a lot of information on here. Again, any questions, anything you want to know more about, just let me know.
So he just didn't like the politics, like the different parties in general?
Yeah, he didn't want any parties to be there at all. He wanted everyone to just kind of be there to represent where they came from and decide on matters in that way. They didn't want parties to form to kind of split it up
So he just
more
didn't want
officially.
conflict.
Sorry?
He didn't want conflict.
Kind of, yeah. All right. Keep it going. So, first two parties we've got. There should be two little sections in those notes, or one for them. Federalists versus anti-federalists. All right? So, like I said, this kind of started around the era of the Constitution. It's a big deal for us. Right? We had those Articles of Confederation. Didn't really work out. All right? Lots of power for the states, not a lot of power for the central government. All right? Kind of led to a very disorganized state of things. All right? Kind of a lack of ability to govern as a whole. So now you have the Federalists. They want the Constitution to happen. They want it to be official. They want everyone to sign it, and that to be the law of the land. All right? They were led by Mr. $10 bill right here, Mr. Alexander Hamilton. All right? Guy in the play. He was he was an officer in the Revolutionary War, kind of an aide to George Washington for a while. Really wanted to patch things up with Great Britain after a while, have a strong central government. And he kind of didn't like France. France was in a revolution at the time, kind of unstable, a lot of crazy ideas coming out of that place. Kind of wanted to leave them alone and stick with Great Britain. Okay, what you want to know about the Federalists? They strongly supported the Constitution and a strong central government. All right, on the other side, the Anti-Federalists. They didn't really take too much time coming up with a fancy name. They just didn't like what the Federalists were about. They supported keeping those Articles of Confederation. All right, they didn't want a strong central government. They wanted the states to have power. All right, sure, there is a central government under the Articles of Confederation. It's more of a regulatory body. Right, they're more to keep these state governments in line, make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. Yeah.
Were there just like specific groups of people that were part of like Federalists versus Anti-Federalists?
Yes. The way, remember that Continental Congress before? It's kind of like that. All right. Members of that would either like the Constitution or not like it. Okay? But these Anti-Federalists were led by Patrick Henry. All right. Patrick Henry, kind of a different character than Alexander Hamilton. He was not a military guy, ever. All right? He kind of started up a little militia, saw a lot of violence, didn't really want anything to do with it, got into politics. All right? And he was very, very afraid of another tyrannical power like Great Britain running the United States. So a powerful central government was not something Patrick Henry wanted. All right? He had a pretty good following for a while in the Congress of that time. Okay? So like I said, up here we got Alexander Hamilton. It's roughly what he looked like on the $10 bill. And down here is Patrick Henry. All right? Kind of a get up in that little room where they'd all meet in and give big fiery speeches about why tyranny is something we have to avoid. And the Constitution will bring tyranny unless it's modified in some way. Okay? Yeah.
Just real quick, You don't have to write this down. I would call this just tasty tidbits to remind a bunch of it. Like the question that Sloan's asking, if you talk about dividing Hamilton from New York, correct? And Patrick Henry was from Virginia. So our nation was already kind of at this point divided between North and South. North and South. South, agrarian, farmers. North, industry, big business, that type of stuff.
Big
So
time.
there's a division already brewing in our country right at the beginning, leading to that whole idea of the Civil War. So, just to take that that idea of how we were divided a little bit, just a little further. But yeah, cool, keep
Yes.
going. Good job.
So yeah, country's kind of divided at this point already. All right, we're less than maybe roughly 10 years out of the gate. We've already got some pretty big issues going on. Okay? So, they eventually reach an agreement. All right? The Federalists and Anti-Federalists, they fought constantly over this tyrannical government that could form under the Constitution. And eventually, they decided we're going to add the Bill of Rights. All right? You've covered the Bill of Rights probably a little bit. We'll cover it more later on for sure. And it's just the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. So the word amendment, kind of amending something, all right? Changes, modifications and changes, stuff like that. We're at 26 amendments, I think, right now. All right? It's really hard to do that to the Constitution, but over time, it has happened, okay? So once they added that Bill of Rights, they kind of had nothing to fight about anymore. All right? The Federalists and Anti-Federalists, their whole thing was this Constitution not really providing for the people's rights, the power of the people, power of the states. Okay? But now that that Bill of Rights is added, they've kind of come to terms that this Constitution is probably good for our country, so they all signed it. All right? It's ratified. And it is now remains the main legal structure in the United States. All right? Most laws, whether it be state or federal, can all lead back to some little thing in the Constitution. All right? And throughout this class, we'll definitely dive into the Constitution a little bit more. All right? So people get really good at dissecting the Constitution, interpreting it, and using it to kind of develop policy, stuff like that. Okay? But since these two parties had nothing to really bicker over anymore, Anti-Federalists don't exist. All right? They kind of just dissolved. So once again, we kind of have a Congress that's okay with each other. They're going to just have general little disagreements every once in a while, but generally, political parties are not much of a thing. All right? Didn't last very long. Any questions at all? Yeah.
Did this help this, North versus South, disagreements?
To a degree. Still, like Mr. Carley said, weird, society disagreements. Where you've got people living a farming lifestyle down south. Then you've got the big city folk up in New York, Boston, stuff like that. All right? They live a more kind of city lifestyle. There's rudimentary factories up there. There's stuff being made, shipping, trade, stuff like that. Down south, it's farming. All right? So there's still differences like that going on. All good to move on?
Yeah.
Great. So, didn't take long for more parties to form. All right? So we're going to kind of just go over these individually. It's kind of a little classification for each one. You've got the Democratic Republican Party. All right? That was one thing. I know it's a little bit long. All right? That was led by Thomas Jefferson, the guy on the nickel. Okay? Thomas Jefferson really just wanted a party that promoted personal freedoms. All right? Your rights. Big fan of that Bill of Rights, those first 10 amendments. And there he is up there. In kind of a bullseye-looking party logo. All right? Kind of see that all over the place back then. So that lasted quite a while, the Democratic-Republican Party. Just a lot of rhetoric, a lot of words being thrown around in the old Congress about your rights, how your rights should be expanded, how the government can't touch your rights and stuff like that. And then 1824 came along. All right, by that point, the country had started expanding a little bit. We kind of got some more states down south, got some more states kind of more towards Pennsylvania, Ohio, stuff like that. And this guy came along. Do you have a question? Oh, sorry. Okay. That's Andrew Jackson. All right, Andrew Jackson's on the $20 bill. And he was kind of not a great personality to have around. All right, he did a lot of controversial stuff, a lot of things that made America what it is today, but he was a crazy racist. He was a military general that would kind of do big, giant military campaigns without permission and win, and kind of just get forgiveness from the government after the fact. And when he became president, it split the party. There was a lot of people that thought this guy shouldn't even be in politics, he should be in jail. But a lot of people that thought he was kind of a visionary, kind of a person who's going to change things up. All right? So when that party split because of him, he kind of took the factions and reunited them and made them kind of the semi-modern iteration of the Democratic Party. Right? So it's no longer this Democratic-Republican Party, it's just the Democrats now. All right? Just like we have today. Okay? Any questions about that? I know it was kind of a long one. All right? Just keep it going. All right. So this one's kind of fallen to the wayside now. The Whigs. All right, they were initially led by this guy, Henry Clay. All right, Henry Clay kind of looked this age his entire life. That's how a lot of people looked back then, just kind of Revolutionary War figures. And he really didn't like Andrew Jackson. All right, he felt that he was kind of a threat to our freedom, a threat to democracy itself. So he formed this party, the Whigs, and they were kind of opposed to any expansion of the United States. Okay, I've briefly mentioned before, this early 1800s time, lots of expansion going on. All right, big excursions being sent out. We've got that Louisiana Purchase going on, so we have a kind of tripled the size of our country in a really short amount of time. Okay, and we don't really know what's out there. He is kind of opposed to that entire concept. So we just kind of keep where we're at, focus on the issues here, and not focus on expanding. All right? This didn't really kick off too much. All right? Not a ton of people. They saw kind of the resources, the benefits that came from making us a bigger, more powerful country. So he fell to the wayside. All right? Party kind of dissolved. There's a lot of people out there who still don't really like this Andrew Jackson Democrat guy. So they kind of get together and form another party in the mid-1800s. We're going to get to in a second. All right? So the Whigs, their logo was an owl at one point. So the Democrats had the donkey. The Republicans, you've probably seen it all over the place, have the elephant. They were the owl. Okay, I'm not really sure if they had those logos back then. They do kind of choose, they stick with the animal theme for their logos. All right. Any questions there? All right, doing great. So, those Whigs and some other folks that weren't really happy with the Democrats formed the Republican Party, a lot of activists opposing slavery. So remember, that's division between North and South. Okay? People down South, slavery is kind of part of their life at this point. All right? To run farms cheaply, make a profit, you need slavery down there at this point. They've ingrained it into how things work. All right? A lot of people in the North don't like that. All right, is he morally wrong? Slavery is bad. Okay? So, in opposing this, it gained a lot of traction pretty quick. So the party was founded in 1854. 6 years later, Abe Lincoln becomes president, the first Republican president. All right? And kind of based a lot of his policy on these values of opposing slavery. All right? Kind of a, again, personal freedoms basis. Okay? This really upset those Southern Democrats. Southern Democrats do not want slavery to go away because the North, where there's a lot more money because of all that industry and factories, than down south where it's kind of still rural, kind of a farming community. You take slavery away, it's going to get even worse. All right? They're going to have to pay their labor. They're going to have to do it the old-fashioned and fair way. And they're going to make even less money down there. While up north, they're just going to still make probably even more. All right? So they did not like this. All right? So all that disagreement in Congress at that time between the Southern Democrats and the Northern Republicans, combined with a few pretty serious military engagements between the two, led to the Civil War. All right? Learn a lot more about that Civil War soon. But kind of where it started. All right? You can draw a line between blue states and red states back then, kind of who took sides on either side of the Civil War. Okay? Any questions there? Kind of breezing through so we can get to that political spectrum. We're almost there. All right. Here we go. So, flash forward about 180 years, and we've got the Democrats and Republicans. Both parties, just kind of in the past 18 decades, gone through a lot of changes. All right? Changes of what they're willing to stand for, changes in what they're fighting over, stuff like that. All right? A lot of those smaller, those Whigs, there was still a couple of like Whig holdouts, some other little parties that would sit around Congress, kind of voice their opinion. They were absorbed into these two, more or less. All right, today you won't find anyone in Congress who isn't kind of a part of either of these parties, all right? Kind of cemented that two-party system. All right? If you want to be a congressperson, it's very, very difficult to gain any traction without submitting to either of these sides. All right? You can hold beliefs from a variety of parties, but if you want to be elected, you kind of have to go with one of these two. All right? The same goes for state governments, kind of all the way down the political pyramid, one might say. All right? This is our modern iteration of the two-party system. Democrats versus Republicans. Questions there? Doing good so far? Moving nice and quick. All right. We'll keep it going. So, now we're on to that political spectrum. All right, we know who's on. We know who's in the game right now. Democrats and Republicans. Now we're going to kind of see where they stand on issues today. All right? So, this is a lot, so I'm going to break it down for you. It's kind of what you need to know. Conservatism, so conservatives here in the United States. All right? They believe in personal responsibility. It's kind of a broad definition of it. Personal responsibility, limited government, free markets, individual liberty, and traditional American values. They really want to support also a strong national defense. All right? So they want to defend the rights of the people, and they want the people to have their own individual rights and take pride in those rights. All right? Generally, they emphasize the power of the individual to solve their problems. All right? So they want you to kind of take initiative and get things done and solve problems around the country. All right? 3 things to know. Yeah.
Oh, so that's Republican?
Yes. 3 things I want you to know, just to classify it, all right? Whenever you hear right, generally conservative. Red, like a red state or a red politician. Republican or conservative. Or Republican is conservative, as far as we're speaking today. Okay? So right, red, Republican. Kind of tie that to conservatism for now. Gotcha? And moving on down to liberalism. They believe in government action to achieve equal opportunity and equality for all. All right, you'll see kind of a recurring theme with liberalism is the government taking action and taking responsibility for equality and equity in the United States. All right? They feel it's the duty of the government to kind of tackle and deal with social problems here in the United States. All right? Social problems are all over the place, more than you can count. And the liberal side of things feels that it's the government's responsibility to address this, take care of it, whereas more on the Republican side, they emphasize the power of the individual over the government. Okay? Liberals also kind of feel that the government should be responsible for people's needs. All right? People shouldn't be in need in a liberal society. All right? The government should take care of it. All right? So, again, 3 things to kind of identify with it. Left, blue, and Democrat. Okay, a blue state, liberal state, more or less. Left side of the spectrum. We're going to look at the spectrum in just a second. All right, and Democrat, that's the party kind of name aligned with the left-leaning politicians. Okay? So here, we've got the 2 candidates in the current presidential race. We've got Donald Trump up here. He's the Republican candidate, kind of more on the conservative side. And then Kamala Harris, who is the Democrat nominee on the liberal side. All right? I'm sure you've become very familiar with both of their faces if you watch TV in the past month or so. Okay? Any questions at all? We'll definitely get more into the presidential race stuff later on. It's a lot going on with that. Okay? Good. So, here we have it, the political spectrum. This one's got a few bonus terms on there for us. You've got, right in the middle, centrist/moderate. Moderate just means you're in the middle. All right? You've got a lot of opinions. Some go this way, some go that way. And it keeps you in the middle of the 2 parties. All right? To the left of that, you've got liberal. That's that blue. All right? Left. Democrat. Democratic Party of the United States typically aligns with that liberal. All right? You want to take it a step further? Leftist. All right? There's some leftist rhetoric here in the United States. Some people kind of looking at leftist ideas. All right? Not a ton. Okay? Doesn't really get a lot of traction in government. Want to take it even further? You've got socialism and communism. All right? For 40, 50 years here in the United States, that was kind of the bad party to be in. All right? Nowadays, Still not really smiled upon, but it's there. All right? People make arguments for that side of the political spectrum all the time. Kind of takes the ideas of that liberal government, big government style society, and takes them even further. All right? On the other side, we'll start with conservative, right here. All right? That's the Republican Party here in the United States. Okay? It, like I said, traditional American values, strong defense, individual freedoms. That's what they're all about. Okay? Then you got right wing. When you hear right wing, a lot of times it's a term thrown around to kind of criticize someone who's conservative. That's someone who takes conservatism a step further. All right? Maybe they feel very strongly about, they're very patriotic, almost to a uncomfortable degree. Someone might call you right wing if you're there. All right? Or if you're very, very adamant about personal freedoms. All right? So you're kind of taking action to get that done. Maybe some personal freedoms we don't have. Someone might call you right wing. Take it a step further, fascism. All right? Oh, wrong way. Come on. Yeah, fascism. All right? Fascism is kind of edge on dictator territory. All right? You can have a left-wing dictator. Gets a little complicated on either side. But fascism is about as far right as it goes. All right? It's not a good place to be, in my opinion. All right? So, kind of just focus on this middle area of the political spectrum for now. Moderate in the middle, liberal on the left. Yeah, what's up?
That's what I'm
Okay, yeah. Focus on these middle three. So moderate in the middle, liberal on the left, conservative on the right. All right, when we talk about kind of the multi-party system, maybe we can get into kind of some of these other parties that lie either outside this line political spectrum or to the far left or the far right. There are parties out there for sure. Okay? Yeah?
Have we ever had a president that was like a communist?
No. Some people would argue that policies passed by liberal presidents in the past could be edging towards socialism or communism, but we've never really had a president who's classified themselves as a communist. Yeah.
Why is socialism and communism like put together and like similar?
They're similar, but they're different in many ways. All right? It's complicated. A lot of little intricacies and things that make them different. Yeah.
Isn't fascism and communism like similar to like with dictators?
There's an authoritarian element to both.
So like an extreme on both sides ends
Yes.
up being similar.
Exactly. Exactly. So, for example, communism. Imagine like a Mao Zedong type figure. All right, kind of the first leader of China, way back in the 40s up to the 60s. Not a great guy by any means. All right, and kind of a dictator. All right, go to the other side, you get Hitler. All right, Hitler was a fascist dictator. All right, both sides are extremes. Both sides allow for authoritarianism. All right, just kind of what you want to avoid. All right. Any other questions? All right, we're going to get into the stances. So make sure on that last page, you got the conservative and liberal stances. So make sure for those you get some of these down. Okay? So, liberal stances on issues. Okay? So, top of the list, abortion. Liberal stance on abortion is that women should have the right to an abortion, and the government should provide them if they cannot be afforded. All right? So some would call this pro-choice. Right? Having the choice to get an abortion. All right? Moving on to the death penalty. Liberal stance is that the death penalty should be abolished. It's morally wrong. Okay? So no matter what crime you commit, no matter how bad, the government does not have the right to kill you for it. That idea has kind of gained traction in the United States over the past couple hundred years. All right? Back in like Wild West times, not so much. All right? You kill someone back then, the government's going to hunt you down and kill you in return. Okay, big one up next, economy. Liberal stance on economics, kind of high finance, is that the government should regulate the economy. Government should kind of have a bigger hand in financial decisions in the United States. Another one, a term you've probably heard many times, gun control. All right, so it's kind of the making and passing of policies that will restrict our ability to purchase weapons or the kind of weapons we can purchase. Okay, guns specifically. Liberal stance on that is that more guns leads to more violence. And the government has the responsibility to protect its people and get those guns out of the people's hands. All right? And our last one up here, taxes. Democrats feel, or the liberal stance is that taxes should increase for the wealthiest people here in the United States. And in order to fund, this is in order to fund government programs, right? Big theme in this liberal side of things, expanding and making more government programs, all right? Ideally, these programs should help you, all right? But sometimes it's hard, all right? So, make sure you've got a pretty good idea. You don't have to write it word for word. Yeah.
Now we have taxes that are by percentages, right? And then, so would they increase the percentage that the wealthy people have to pay? And
Yeah, so those top tax brackets. So you're in the quote unquote 1%.
But wouldn't it be like more money still? It's the same percent, so it would be like taking the same amount, but just different amounts because of the different income.
Kind of. They would, or they say they really want to focus on taxing those upper tax brackets. The bracket, the bracket system of taxes? Those upper brackets, they want to tax more. And the money they get from that, they're going to use to make fund those new government programs, or pre-existing ones, more. All right? But again, we're talking billions of dollars. And billions of dollars like that, even if it's the government, can be pretty difficult to manage. Okay? Any other questions about the liberal stances? Got them more or less written down to a degree? All right, we'll move on to conservative stances. Okay, so at the top, abortion. Generally, the conservative stance is that the fetus is a human life and has separate rights from the mother. And that mother must be protected. Okay? You cannot kill it. They also fear that taxpayer dollars should not go towards this, which is kind of a no-brainer, all right? No abortions because it's taking a human life, and taxpayer dollars should definitely not go towards it. Okay, that's the conservative stance. So generally, no to abortion for conservatives. Death penalty. They feel it's an acceptable punishment for murder. So, you kill someone in cold blood, get caught, go to court. If the judge feels you should get the death penalty, you can get the death penalty. All right, put you on death row for a while, and then you get lethal injection most of the time. They do not really feel that, they feel that if you have the moral compass that allows you to take a human life, then the government should be able to take your life, kind of as an acceptable punishment for that crime. All right? All right, another one, big one, the economy. Competition and private enterprise, two things the conservative side of politics really wants to promote. All right, they feel it creates the best standard of living, kind of pushes capitalism here in the United States, pushes people to spend and save and invest money. All right, kind of keeps things going, keeps things growing. All right, they feel any government regulation, so the hands of the government kind of turning the gears of the economy would just mess things up. All right, it would change kind of the way the game works, change capitalism, and it would mess with the economy in a bad way. All right, they do not want government regulation in the economy, or they want it much, much less. All right? Any questions so far on either side's stances or anything? Cool. Gun control. Big one. Probably heard about in the news quite a bit. Conservative stance on gun control is that the Second Amendment guarantees our right to bear arms. So that Second Amendment kind of grants us our right to defend ourselves should it come down to it. All right? And bear arms means we can own guns. All right? They also feel that gun control will not prevent criminals from getting guns. They will just get the guns illegally. All right? And will prevent law-abiding citizens from getting guns to defend themselves from said criminals. All right? So, Second Amendment, it's our right to have a gun. Gun control is bad because criminals will get them anyway, and the people who need those guns to defend themselves won't be able to get them. All right, that's the conservative stance, more or less. All right, and last but not least, taxes. The conservative side, Republicans, want to lower taxes. It's a big goal. All right? You tell anyone you're going to lower taxes, people are going to start listening. All right? It's more money in your pocket. Gets the individual's brain going. All right? They feel this will encourage people to invest. All right? People have more money in their pocket, more money to spend. It's going to keep that economy going. All right? They're going to be able to kind of put some money away, buy some bigger things, buy a house, stuff like that. All right? It's all the tax stuff is kind of generally towards people having control of their money. All right? They feel when you have your money, you earned it, it's yours, you're better at handling it than the government is. Okay? That's what the Conservative Party believes. There's a lot of people who vote that way believe, and they want policy to reflect it. All right? So, I think that's it. So I'm going to hand out this sheet. Hand out this sheet to you guys really quick. Explain what we're doing next. So, if you've got a phone or computer, preferably a computer, please open it up. So this little packet I'm handing out just kind of has those stances reiterated for you, along with the liberal and conservative stances on some other topics. So you guys can have a kind of a visual that lives this time. So you guys, if you're on the computer, if you don't have your computer, it's all right. You can use your phone. Go to isidewith.com. So this website, everyone got one of these? Great. So that website, it's got a very detailed political quiz on it. All right, should be right there. It says take a quiz, right at the top. All right, that quiz is pretty long. All right, you don't have to dive into it too much. There's a lot of yes or no. You tap a little button, it'll say yes, but if you feel strongly about it. Go through that. It's going to kind of give you an idea of where you lie. In this. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, it's online?
It's online. Go to isidewith.com. Yep.
It's actually kind of long, but it's really good. We actually want you to go ahead and do this, and then make sure that you record, the information that it tells you at the end. So we only have about 4 minutes left, so I don't know if we'll be able to get through the whole thing.
Okay.
But it's one of those things. We want to make sure you complete this and you get the data from this.
Yes.
All right? So
Make sure you finish it on your own time and just record what it tells you at the end. It'll kind of tell you where you lie on that spectrum. It'll also tell you some candidates in the upcoming election that they feel you would vote for. All right? It'll also just help you get a better idea of where you stand on a lot of these issues. All right? It's kind of hard to navigate nowadays. All right? Any questions at all about that? All right, if anything comes up, just let me know. I'm happy to help you out. Any of the issues, if they get a little bit into the weeds, let me know. I can clarify it for you. Okay? Doing good?
Yes.
Awesome. What's up?
Is that just like no private business? I don't know.
Technology or financial systems the decentralized protocol that is not under control. So you know how no one really owns the internet?
Oh my god.
That's, how do you feel about that? Do you think finances and the technology about finance should also be like that? Because right now it's companies. So a lot of
we'll actually revisit that website. We'll get that stuff Monday.
do you think it should be like a free thing, trade in that, or that one's a little bit complicated. Yep, that one's a tough one. So, technology in the financial system is really highly.
I'm listening.
E-trade or a stock trade type thing, trading stocks. You think that should be public, like the internet? No one really owns all of the
So
you think it should be like that?
should government stocks be public?
Should stocks and access to the stock market be
Oh.
like that?
Did you like our highlighter?
The highlighter collection?
We were in like the third.
You got quite a few.
Like a bunch
That's okay. You can laugh at me up here all you want. It's the two-party system.
Yeah.
No one else.